Settle in, my friends, for today we're about to journey into a tale of grit and spirit, a story forged in the fires of resistance across seas and centuries to a land where the air is thick with the pulse of life itself, Angola. The 1600s, a time when the world, as we know it, was beginning to take shape. Nations rose and fell like the tides. Kingdoms shattered. Empires sprawled across the globe. And in Africa, amidst the vast, unyielding beauty of Ndongo, a spark of defiance was born in the heart of a woman who refused to be broken. Our story begins in a kingdom alive with tradition, where the people knew the language of the land, where children played under ancient skies, and the elders taught wisdom through whispered stories around glowing fires. Here, in Ndongo, people moved to the rhythm of nature. They hunted, they celebrated, they mourned, they thrived. But that peace, that delicate balance, was disrupted by a force so vast, so alien, that it threatened to swallow up everything it touched. Portuguese colonizers, their ships arrived, towering like iron monsters on the horizon. They came with promises, yes, but those promises soon revealed the razor edges hidden beneath. What began as trade quickly turned to something darker, and those promises became shackles. You see, the Portuguese were not content with exchange. No, they wanted control. They wanted wealth beyond measure, and they didn't care what or who they had to trample to get it. They enslaved the people, took the land, stripped it bare. This was a well-rehearsed performance for them, one they had played out across continents. They saw Ndongo, this ancient kingdom, not as a sovereign land, but as a resource to be exploited. Men, women, even children, shackled, broken, forced from their homes, sent across treacherous seas to foreign lands where they'd become property. But oh, they underestimated one thing: the fierce resilience of a people who had lived through generations under the protection of their ancestors, who held within their hearts the memory of freedom. And at the heart of this defiance, standing tall, was a woman who would rise to face an empire. Her name, Nzinga. Nzinga was not born a queen. No, she was born into the royal family, yes, but her path was far from assured. Her father, King Ngola Kiluanji, saw something in her, a fierce, intelligent fire that blazed even as a young girl. Her father chose to cultivate it, teaching her the things that only men were meant to know: the art of diplomacy, the strategies of war, the secrets of leadership. She learned to listen carefully, to watch and wait, to understand the delicate balance of power in a world so often tilted against those born to it. But when her father died, that balance shifted. Nzinga's brother took the throne, full of jealousy, mistrust, and weakness. He resented her, feared her even, for he knew she possessed the strength and wisdom he lacked. Yet, despite his suspicions, he needed her. For the Portuguese had tightened their grip on Ndongo, leaving him desperate and without answers, and so he called upon Nzinga. Nzinga was summoned to negotiate with the Portuguese governor. She was no queen yet, merely a woman facing the might of an empire. But oh, she did not flinch, not for a second. She entered the meeting with grace and strength. And yet, the governor, the symbol of all that was dark and domineering, had no chair prepared for her, a calculated insult. But Nzinga would not be humiliated, oh no. With a single look, she instructed one of her attendants to kneel at her side, and there she sat, on her servant's back, her head held high, her gaze unbroken. She met the governor's eyes, daring him to look away, daring him to recognize her power, her defiance, her dignity. That single moment spoke more than words ever could. This was no meek diplomat. This was a woman prepared to command, a warrior in spirit, if not yet in title. And yet, despite her strength, the negotiations fell apart. She did not leave with peace. No, she returned to Ndongo to find it even more ravaged than before. Villages burned, families torn apart, the cries of her people like thunder in her ears. This was the moment. The moment when the diplomat, the sister, the royal woman, became the leader her people so desperately needed. Nzinga took up the mantle of queen, though the title was a dangerous one. And with that title came a fierce promise. She would be not only the voice of her people, but their sword, their shield. She would transform her kingdom into a fortress, a bastion against the darkness that sought to consume them. But more than that, she would become a symbol, a living, breathing testament to the power that comes when you refuse to submit, when you dare to defy. Nzinga was more than just a fighter. She was a brilliant strategist. She knew that Ndongo alone could not withstand the onslaught. She knew she needed allies. And so she turned to neighboring tribes, uniting them, speaking to their fears, their desires for freedom. She even turned to the Dutch European rivals of the Portuguese, forging alliances that would equip her warriors, strengthen her defenses, and strike fear into the hearts of her enemies. Imagine, if you will, a queen who did not rule from a throne of gold, but from the front lines, who stood alongside her warriors, who held them not through fear, but through inspiration. Imagine the spirit of a woman who, day after day, looked into the face of an empire and said, "I am still here, my friends." Our story now turns to the fire of Nzinga's final years, a fire that blazed brighter as she grew older. Imagine a queen who has fought not just against one empire, but against countless forces aligned to crush her and her people. She had defended Ndongo's borders, led her warriors into battles so fierce that even the Portuguese trembled to speak her name. And though the years took their toll, though each battle left its mark, Nzinga was undeterred. No conqueror, no soldier could quell her spirit. Nzinga was not only a brilliant strategist, she became a master of resilience itself. When her kingdom faced siege, she relocated it, establishing a stronghold in the mountains of Matamba, a place that would serve as both sanctuary and fortress. Oh, she didn't just rule Matamba. She transformed it into a symbol of defiance, a beacon of hope for all those who lived under the shadow of colonial oppression. From there, she waged war after war, a relentless campaign to reclaim the land and lives that the Portuguese had taken. But her battles were not always won with swords. Nzinga was wise, patient, and she understood the games of power. When strength of arms could not secure victory, she relied on her unmatched diplomacy, her skillful negotiations, her cunning. To the Portuguese, she became a living nightmare, a queen whose very existence was a thorn in the side of their empire. They offered her treaties, promises of peace. And when it served her people, Nzinga accepted, oh yes, but always on her terms. She would make allies of former enemies, navigate political traps, wield alliances like weapons. She became, in every way, a queen unmatched in her brilliance, a true tactician. And yet, but even as she led armies, even as she held her own against an empire, there was a loneliness in her heart. She watched as her people suffered, as families were torn apart, as her land was drained of its life. She witnessed the horrors of slavery, the brutal taking of her people to foreign lands, the sorrow of those who would never see home again. Every battle she fought, every choice she made, was for them, for the hope that someday they would know a life free from fear, free from chains. Years passed and Nzinga's legacy grew. Stories of her bravery spread far beyond the borders of her kingdom. Her people, inspired by her strength, came to see her not just as a ruler, but as a symbol, a warrior queen who would never surrender. And even in her old age, she continued to fight, to lead, to inspire. She stood tall, fierce as ever, a reminder that freedom is never freely given. It must be fought for, earned, defended with every breath. In the end, Nzinga outlived many of her enemies. She lived to see the Portuguese forces weakened, to see her kingdom remain unconquered. She died at the age of 81, a lifetime spent in resistance, in defiance. And in that lifetime, she had achieved what few could ever hope to achieve. She did not simply resist, she reshaped history. Her legacy lives on, not just in Angola, but throughout the world, wherever people yearn for freedom, wherever there is a spirit too fierce to break. Today in modern Angola, statues of Queen Nzinga stand as a tribute to her courage, to her spirit, to the indomitable will of a woman who stood against an empire. Her story, though centuries old, resonates as strongly now as it did then. A story of resilience, of leadership, of a woman who dared to be a voice for her people when the world wanted her silent. And that, my friends, is the heart of Queen Nzinga's tale. She fought not for a throne, not for glory, but for the freedom of her people. She showed the world that true power lies in the strength of one's spirit, in the courage to resist, to rise, and to lead. If this story stirred something within you, a flame, a desire to learn more, then let us continue to seek out these echoes of the past. For these stories are not just history, they are reminders of what we can be, of what we must strive for. Here, on Echoes of the Past, we will continue to uncover these tales, these hidden legacies that shape our world. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If you seek more untold truths, more legends of courage, remember to subscribe, so that together we can bring these forgotten voices back to life.